we should be now live.
Right.
Okay, just let's give to the guys a few seconds.
Oh yeah, I can see it live.
Yeah, we are live. Okay,
Fantastic.
I just need to check the audio, so please speak.
Hi guys. All good? Everything okay?
Yes, we are live and the audio is working very well.
Good.
Hello, hello. So, James, probably we have to give to our guys a few minutes because probably they were waiting for us, but then the live never started in time. So, sorry guys, we had some kind of a technical issues here. My brand new Mac decided to shut down and collapse. So I had to restart everything from zero, and I had James here with me, stuck for half an hour, just watching me asking in Italian support to my me people in the studio.
I think I picked up a few Italian swear words there that I can reuse, Matteo, so that was good. That was very useful. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Forced Italian lesson by Mindwork. That's the next format we will probably release in the future. So people, as always, I want to ask you to give me a little feedback on audio and video before we get started, because it will be very useful. Okay, people are starting to join the live.
Good.
So I just know I don't remember, because I don't remember if we already spoke about that, but I just noticed yesterday that you are not anymore on ArtStation. Is for the AI issue?
It's for multiple reasons, really. I like Leonard was the original guy that started ArtStation, and I really like Leonard. He was a nice guy, and he was a really good supporter of the artists. You know, like you could tell that he started the site to support artists. Because then I think it was CG Hub before, kind of sort of left a massive gap for people, for our industry's sort of exposure. And I was really, I was one of the first people to get a pro website through ArtStation, and they from their part, they were very supportive. They even got, I never consider myself like a big rock star artist or anything, but they did like a blog feature on me and everything. It was really, really flattering. So I was like #1 ArtStation supporter for a long time. And then Epic took over, and it just turned very corporate very quickly. And at the end of the day, we all work in a corporate environment. Like if you're working collectibles, especially, there's always some level of involvement there. But I thought at least we could keep it out of the portfolios to a degree. At the end of the day, it's got to be somewhere where businesses go to look for work. But I saw it being taken over. And I think there were a couple of things that happened that they did not, I won't go into specifics, but they did not handle very well. In fact, I would say they handled it in a very heavy-handed corporate manner that I didn't like. And I think the icing on the cake was how they dealt with the AI situation. And at the end of the day, it's a hot topic. But I did not like the arrogance that was on show. And so I took my work off, and actually I would say that hurt me more than it hurt them. But I'm a firm believer in having the courage of your convictions. You have to vote with your feet, even if it hurts you. At the end of the day, much happier being off that site, having my work not be part of it, the reality of it. So at the end of the day, if you don't have your principles, what do you have, Matteo, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I completely understand your point of view. So you moved on Kara and you're using other platform. I mean,
I've kind of gone a bit quiet, to be honest. I think the other thing that I think we're all struggling with at the moment is the prevalence of social media and how it's really ingrained itself in our lives, you know, and no more so than being an artist. An artist, like, it's actually now a part of our job, which is a double-edged sword, really. I feel. And as you get older, you start to see, you know, things, how it affects people, how it affects my friends' kids and as they're growing up and all of that. And then again, it's the principles thing, like how much do you want to be involved in that system? And so the reality is I don't have a choice like most of us, but I've kind of stepped back a little bit. So, I mean, I haven't really been updating work. I've been very, very busy with Sideshow, working with Sideshow, and before that with XM. So I took a break to focus on, forgive me, but getting paid, having a life, you know, outside of, you know, social media, and focusing on, you know, just the fun side of the art really, for me, which I felt like I got to a point where I needed to recapture that, you know, at least reappraise it. And sometimes the only way to reappraise something like that is when to step back from it, you know, to step back from it and give it time, which is actually really difficult because, you know, there's that massive amount of FOMO when it comes to Instagram, you know, like you think, oh shit, I'm not, you know, posting enough. And of course, you know, it's natural. We all compare ourselves to other people. So, you know, it's difficult to come off that. But yeah, the reason why you won't find a lot out there is because I've done it on purpose. I've kind of stepped back.
Totally.
Yeah.
I don't know. The guys here in the chat are asking me to set up a bit better the audio.
Yes.
The voice of James is now better, and how is my audio? I just bought a new microphone, so it's the first live today with this new one. Please give me feedback if you hear me low. I can increase a bit the volume. Much better on James now. Perfect.
Good.
You are still quiet. I'm still quiet, so I can. It's better now. Should be.
I can hear you fine, but yeah.
Should be better.
Good.
It's better, guys. Hey, Bill, maybe you can help me to set up a bit better. Okay, probably yes, otherwise there were... Okay, so yeah, I mean, for me it's totally the same. I mean, I've been away from social media for at least 1 year, so I can understand your point of view.
Yeah.
So I was, literally challenging with the expectation of people. You have to you have a kind of set expectation about your frequency, how many times you post, and what you are going to post. So I had many issues with that. I can understand that sometimes it's a bit more, a bit oppressive. So I can understand this point of view. So,
well, it's funny because I think the two things are at odds with each other. You know, having that commerciality, you know, being visible constantly, and actually the art side is kind of like fights against it. So you know, kind of as an artist, as any sort of commercialized these days, you're kind of juggling the two things. So it's finding that balance. I think for me, that's the tricky part.
Yeah. Probably, guys, is better now. They are still reporting me some issues about the microphone, but it should be now.
Okay.
So, just I want to ask you to introduce yourself in terms of how, especially how you start your career and when you start to scout, because for many artists, the starting point is a very important step into the career. When you decide to start to sculpt something, and if you remember when you sculpted for the first time a shape, a figure, or something like that.
Yeah, that's a good question. Um, I started. Well, hi, I'm James. I've been sculpting for 10 years, 12 years, something like that. With mostly with ZBrush. Before that, I went to art school, did all the art schooly stuff, studied illustration, and then sort of after I graduated, I kind of floated a little bit, tried a few things. Tried graphic design, tried a bit of illustration, and then I kind of picked up ZBrush one day, actually out of pure frustration, um, because I just didn't feel like I was getting anywhere with the more traditional routes. Um, and so yeah, I picked up a copy of ZBrush, and I think because I've been drawing a lot of portraits, I started to sculpt some portraits, and I think there was just some random portraits at first, and then I kind of used my interest in computer games, which like I'm Generation X. I grew up on computer games and MTV, so like I've always had a computer game I fixated on. Even now, I fixate on something. And at that point, I think it was Dishonored. I think Dishonored had come out around 2012, 2013, I think. And I just loved the characters. I think that was for me because I having a history as an illustrator. The focus for me wasn't specifically on the technique or technicality of art. It was the storytelling. And so I kind of came round full circle and found that yeah, you can kind of tell a story through ZBrush, and just even by these really basic sort of portraits that are based off someone else's IP or whatever, you can still have a lot of fun and still feel like you're progressing your art a little bit. Having fun was the main thing. And of course, when you have fun, sometimes you get something really cool happens. And I think in this case for me, it did. I realised, I could do something that had value to myself. Which I didn't really have before. I would, before as an artist, I'd just be cranking stuff out to please people. Whereas with the sort of Dishonored stuff on the ZBrush, I was like, I did sculpts, they looked cool. I put it up on my Tumblr and forgot about it. And but that was fun. That was just fun. I still wish I could go back to those days because, of course, life happens and it takes that away from you a little bit. But yeah, I kind of started there with kind of ZBrush, and basically, yeah, I got some work with well, I think firstly, what I did was I was encouraged to share my work on ZBrush Central at the time by the COO, Jaime Labelle. It's funny because I didn't think he was serious. So he emailed me. So he's a COO of Pixelogic at the time, which is now owned by Maxon. So he's a serious dude. Like like they have an office out in LA. It's a big deal. And I thought he was joking, or I didn't take him seriously when he emailed me. He said, "Look, James, come over." That was later, but he said, "Look, James, post some of your work up on ZBrush Central. We really like it." I was like, "Yeah, okay," and did nothing because to me, I just couldn't connect that the reason why he'd want my work up. And he actually emailed me again, slightly not angry. I know Jaime, but like he's with his very Latin accent, sort of slightly aggressive. I can even picture it now. So why haven't you posted your work up yet? And I was like, oh right, so he's kind of serious. So I posted it up, and it did really, it was, I wouldn't say successful, but people noticed it, which is quite a unique thing to happen, you know, like it's difficult to describe if it's not happened to you, but
Yeah.
for once you kind of feel like people are paying attention to you, so it's a nice feeling. um but you know, it's very fleeting, and of course nothing happened after that particularly, uh until like I got someone contacted me, a guy called Ed Barnett Ward, and he'd seen one of the sculptures I'd done of Doctor Who. Like I think the one of the Doctor Who's, one of the newer Doctor Who's, and I'd done like a sculpt of this thing, and it was up on ZBrush Central. He saw it, and he offered me some work, and so I started off sculpting. The first commercial work I did was like a soap bottle,
Oh,
or
okay.
well, anyway, like quite a well-known children's sort of film franchise, and I remember it really well because because it was like a typical like super corporate, you know, like sort of
Yeah, yeah, total.
rubbish object. Yeah, completely made out of like plastic, you know. So there's no chance to put any detail or any, on this. Like, forget making an art piece. You know, this was a product you were making.
Yeah,
Um,
I guess that this is a very common start for many artists. Every time I heard about a story or the beginning of the career, someone career, every time starting to do something totally different by what you are now doing and what you are liking and what is something that is related to your inner soul and it's part of your artistic part.
yeah, yeah. You kind of have to forget that while you're building your name up. You know, like it, and that's not building your name up with the general public. It's
Yeah.
building your name up with businesses and companies. And I think that's where a lot of artists kind of get lost, because that does not, your artwork and your ability to make art is only a certain component of that object that you're creating. Like the other part is your personality, your work ethic, all of this stuff that a lot of other, you know, and a lot of people do struggle with it. It is difficult because, you know, they're not, people are paying you for this stuff, but not only that, and we will talk about this later about big statues, but they are investing in you to make a product, and that has a tangible figure on it, like a monetary figure. And so if you fail or if you don't deliver, then that is an asset or money lost to them. So they are putting their trust, sorry, in you. And actually, as a young artist, you kind of, it's not something you really think about. And it's only as you get higher up the chain that you realize, wow, you know, actually, yeah, there's a lot of faith and trust in me on this project to deliver. And so, yeah, I kind of started off with Ed. Ed's a wicked guy. Like, I have a lot of time for Ed. He convinced the BBC to restart collectibles for Doctor Who when they rebooted in sort of the early noughties. And so he made all the. I mean, he started off as a traditional sculptor, and then they moved on to digital, progressed on.
Yeah.
And I think he still works on the Doctor Who stuff, as far as I'm aware. And so yeah, he was a cool guy to work for. Through him, I did things like I did Kids Cluedo as well. So if you buy, I think it's still there actually. So if you buy a copy of Kids Clue, then those are all my sculptures in as little pieces. So those were a lot of fun. I had to do those in 3 days as well. So actually, for me at the time, that was the first time where I had that pressure, you know, on me as well. Like, we need these in 3 days, you know, sort of thing. So that was really, really helpful because it helped me put things into perspective. Because, you know, there's dream jobs and then there's a job, and this was something in between. And so you kind of have to figure out a way forward. And everyone's different. Everyone works differently. Everyone has different availability in their time, in their day. So it's how you fit in with that and how you forge yourself a day, you know, a routine, because that's basically what work is, you know, like what we do. Like, it's nice to have like all the nice art and all of that, but at the end of the day, we aren't just making art, we're producing it. It's a commodity. And so you need to structure your kind of day and life around that to produce it. You know, you're a business.
Oh
in
yeah.
and of itself. So and so that, going back to kind of how I started, that was for me how I linked to ZBrush and my work, and made a career, started my career.
Yeah,
And so it's not ideal, like you do stuff that you don't particularly want to work on. It's kind of fun. You have to find the fun within, that the limits of that project. And so yeah, I did quite a lot of stuff, and it built a bit. I built up quite a good technical knowledge of ZBrush. It's very. I mean, I'm assuming a few people listening have probably tried to use it. It can be very, very difficult to use. So it does require a lot of time investment to learn. It's not particularly intuitive. So I was able to not only earn money and build my relationships, I was also able to gain sort of more technical ability, more technical knowledge on the software and the ins and outs of ZBrush and 3D printing as well. And around that time, also bought a 3D printer, a Formlabs printer. This is before you could buy printers cheaply, so it was an expensive bit of equipment, and I had it in my bedroom. So
I know very well. Yeah, I know very well. I mean, probably when I started Mindwork 5 years ago, we bought I don't remember the name, but it was very expensive, $10,000, something like that. And just 6 months later, there was in the market something at 1,000 and a half, doing quite the same job, and I was like, I mean, why? I mean, that's not fair.
I mean, it's funny because looking back on it, I'm like, it makes me really anxious, because this is such a technical enterprise, 3D printing still. I mean, it's come on leaps and bounds in the 10 years that I've been kind of using it, but I had it in my bedroom. It stunk the bedroom out. The reality that people don't really talk about with these 3D printers is that they're toxic. The resin's toxic. If you get it on your hands, if you get it anywhere, it's bad. It's not good. And so but I was just sort of splashing it about, and oh god, not using it how I should. But I learned a lot about that. It was a good baptism of fire for me. I learned quite a lot. Just failing. This is the thing. You learn a lot by failing lots. Actually, it turns out I had a really naff printer as well. The printer I had was malfunctioning.
Yeah.
But even that, with the older Formlabs, there was a mirror, and you had to clean it every time, and it would just almost be semi-destroyed by the resin. If you spilt any resin on it, it was just, and you had to go back to Formlabs, replace the mirror, take the printer apart. Yeah, so there was a lot of technical stuff that I learned, but it gave me a good knowledge of how to format my ZBrush sculpts, get them into print, how that whole process, because it's an important process. It's like the one bit that people really hate, I assume, when it comes to making this stuff. But if you can't make that thing on the screen a physical product, and you don't have the technical knowledge, then no one's going to hire you, because you're going to deliver things that are just not, well, as you know, Matteo, I deliver stuff that we have to work on to get to work. Even after 10 years of experience, it's not a precise science at the artist end, So, you need to work. You need to have the knowledge. You need to be able to work with someone who knows how to cast. Nowadays, the printing's all done by other people, so you need to be able to, liaise with them in terms of the miniatures. But even at the top end, when you're working with people like XM and Sideshow, you still need to understand the print and casting process. I would say even more, because you've got even more issues that can happen with very large sculpts.
Yeah.
You can get all sorts of problems. So it's good to know and understand what you're passing off down the line to other people. So yeah, I had that grounding to go way back. Sorry, I've been talking a lot, but way back to the original question, I kind of had that grounding. So this is all happening at once. So I was doing some commercial work. I was printing some of my own stuff, some Dishonored busts and some other stuff. And yeah, it was sort of ticking along nicely. I quit the job that I had. I was working as a graphic designer, and then it was a weird job. I was working as a graphic designer and then packing orders, and like it was in a small business in London. And I'd previously been working there in the warehouse solely. And so I was able to quit that job because I could see a potential. When I started to make money, it's not a lot of money, but it was like, okay, well, I'm making just a little bit less than what I'm making in my day job, so I can survive. So I made that transition. And it's funny because when you do that, when you remove the kind of the safety net and you have to push yourself, then that's when the good stuff starts to happen. But it's a risk, of course. I wouldn't recommend it for everyone. It's. I can't say, look, everyone, give up your jobs now. I don't want to be responsible for people's grief, right? But
But you have,
it worked for me. It worked in my instance. Well, I know you've done a similar thing, Matteo. But like I do think there's something to it. But so yeah, it's hard work. It's hard.
yeah, well, I mean, sometimes to get an achievement, you have to pay the price, and I mean, you have to run the risk. I mean, I think that I'm very lucky in that because I never worked in another industry, in another field. I started working in this industry when I was 20. I was painting a Warhammer armies for other people to play. So, of course, my job now is totally different by the beginning, but still I mean, I never work in a restaurant, I never work in, all those side jobs. I start directly working in the field I was loving. So I'm very curious asking every time how people start to do that job. Because, I mean, all the career has very similar fundamentals, very similar basement, but of course each journey is totally different. So I can understand your workflow.
Well, there's another component to this, and it's at a personal level. I don't mind, talking about it, but I had crippling anxiety when I was younger, so I was a late starter. So I know you're a big fella as well. I know you're over 6 foot, Matteo. I'm 6'4", and I've always been very slender, and I always had trouble getting myself out there. Like I'm sure it's quite common. I know other people, especially within the arts industry, I know, and the arts community, people struggle with. We're quite insular people a lot of the time, so we're not particularly extroverted. So yeah, that was something I really struggled with. So I didn't go back to uni, and I went back to uni. So I didn't go to art school until I was 25, 26. So I was a lot older than a lot of the other students. And it took me a long time to build up confidence and do things. So not only did I pick the kind of my career up, I started really in my mid-30s because I'm 46 now. Then I also had to overcome a lot of these other obstacles. I'm not saying, oh, well, it's hard. It's just a lot of people have to do this sort of stuff, but it does. I think it might be insightful to people listening because it's not just one thing that's going on. People have all sorts of issues they have to, overcome, and it becomes artists in general, good artists anyway, wear their heart on their sleeves. So. It comes out in what we do. It might not be in a direct way, but it might be in your work ethic or the way you interact with people. But it does find its way out, and it kind of becomes one.
Yeah.
With if that makes sense, I might be talking rubbish here, but I always feel like that's it. So I always think when you focus on just being an artist, well, you're not actually getting the full, story here.
Yeah. But for that reason, I mean, we have a very a question by the audience that is related to that. There is a guy here is asking because he's starting to work for a few companies doing miniatures, but
Right.
he is asking how to open a path in this world as an upcoming sculptor because he still can find a way to get the attention of bigger companies. So to make this kind of, probably to do this kind of jump home, because of course I can understand the feeling.
Yeah, and I think here's the thing. Well, okay, so to go back, I've been working for I've been working with Sideshow for 6 years, and I managed to progress to that by meeting people and just getting myself out there. Of course, here's the thing: there's a massive amount of luck involved as well. It's being in the right place at the right time. I won't lie. Everyone would like to feel like, well, we're super talented. You get work. You know, Matteo, as well as I do. There's super talented people out there without work. So I think there is a thing where I managed to get myself out, and actually in this instance, it was out to Los Angeles at the time. I was in the right place at the right time. I met the right people, and my work was, I'm not going to bash myself. My work was good enough to get noticed as well. So there's a few components to unpack with that, really. It's always difficult because I think it's an individual thing as well to answer these sort of questions, especially without seeing the work involved that the person's doing. I think the other thing is I never really set out to do comic book work or to do big statues. It was something I progressed to, was offered to me, and I took it. And so these things kind of tend to happen indirectly. And so I always think the more you want something, the less likely you're going to get it in that respect, What I did right, I think, looking back, was just focus on myself. If you look back at my portfolio from 5-6 years ago, there's no superheroes in there whatsoever. I focused on what I wanted to do, deep down what I really wanted to do, not what I think I wanted to do, and what other people wanted me to do, what other people wanted to see. I'm not looking at and I stopped looking at other people's stuff. I actually never really started out looking at other people's 3D work. I started out as an illustrator, so I'm like, I know Spiridon's now part of the, like he's on the Discord and stuff. I love his stuff because I know, and like he focuses on those illustrators, those amazing artists, and I think that's what I'm interested in. Like, it's not just 3D stuff, but people that really are able to tell a story through their medium,
absolutely,
whether that's 3D or not. And so I don't tend to look at 3D guys that much. I do a little bit more now, but when I started out, I wasn't really focused. I really didn't know where these little things were in the industry anyway. I just started off having fun. And do you know what? I think that's what I did right, because it gave me a good grounding. And I wish I could say, guys, go away and do this and you'll be a success. The world doesn't work like that, I'm afraid. But at least you can have fun. And here's the other thing: if you're doing something because you think in art because you think people want to see it, you're not going to enjoy that. If you make a career out of that and you're having to sculpt these, look, at the end of the day, these big court scale statues, they take 3 or 4 months at best to sculpt. Do you really have the staying power to sculpt something like that you're not enjoying, really, deep down? Because the reality is, okay, a lot of the guys who like comics, I like comics as well, more 2000 AD sort of guy. But at the end of the day, 2000 AD, Judge Dredd and all that, how do I be polite about this? No one's going to pay you to make Judge Dredd. They do not sell. Those statues do not sell. So the chances of me getting a Judge Dredd quarter scale statue are so unbelievably narrow that if I try and focus on getting a job sculpting Judge Dredd statues, it's not going to work. It's like niche within niche within niche. So you have to be able to go back, structure your artistic output to what you really want to do, and then that you by doing that you can kind of pop into like your commercial mind and make these statues and still have fun. That's what I'm able to do, because I would say 9 times out of 10 I'm working on something that I wouldn't have picked out. A little bit nowadays, I'm lucky, But when I first started, I wasn't saying, "Oh, I want to work on, like Batman statue," and having a choice. No, you get handed these things if you're lucky. And so most of the time you'll be sculpting something that, yeah, it's kind of, you're not really that into, and you have to be able to get excited about and get into it. So there's kind of these two things here, like so to get noticed, to get, not, and there's no 100% guarantee here, but just formulate your artistic voice. And that comes when you're doing original work, not just basing it off like a character or someone. It's at the end of the day, look, there's someone else's characters and not yours. That's fine. Look, I'm not knocking that, but there is a balance to be had here. I've been an art director. I'm back to freelance now, but we'll talk about that later as well. But like as an art director that got people in to sculpt stuff, I would not. Like if they've done superheroes, great, because I know, okay, but I'm looking at other things in their work. I'm looking more, do you have your own voice? Do you have something to say? Is there something unique that you can add to this project? Because at the end of the day, if you're working on a lot of these franchises, they've been done a million times. Well, Batman's a great example, right? How many Batman statues have you seen? And the danger is if we teach people how to do these things like in a very sort of factory-like process, they look they look all the same. So this is kind of that weird thing where you need to have your own individuality when you go into these things. So I don't know if that will help or not. It's not a direct answer to the question, but yeah.
I guess that I agree with you, and I was telling a very similar concept last day about painting for yourself. I mean, I grew up a lot when I started to paint for myself. When I started to stop thinking about being the painter that the industry was looking for. When I started to paint for myself, to express my idea, to express my necessity, there I started to grow up and I started to work a lot because I was giving to the audience, I was giving out something different by the usual paint job. So I think that this is a very common question and this is a very common answer. This is something that is not. It's normal when you are starting to do a career. Of course, you need to find customers and blah blah blah, all the pipeline. But when you start to focus on yourself and you start to think about the job, probably everything will change. So we have another two questions that are very not similar but related in some way. The first one is, if you could pick up anything, what will be your dream project?
Oh, that's a great question.
And then there will be another question a bit more technical, but please go with the first one.
I like the creative ones too. Yeah, that's a great. Do you know what? It's actually. I'm trying not to be abstract about this, but here's the thing: I would like to do my own stuff. That is that simple. I tell you, Matteo, Matteo and I are going to be talking about this in the future, hopefully. But I've got so much stuff that I want to do, and I'm not able to do it because I have to do other people's stuff. So ideally, I'd be getting paid for doing my own stuff. That's how I feel. Yeah, I think I'm just as much as a geek as everyone else. I'm a massive Warhammer fan. I've been a Warhammer fan since I was 11. Before it was cool. Before it went like national and super rich, and yeah, I love comics, I love computer games and all of that. But so there are probably a few things that I'd enjoy working on as a franchise. But I think if I had that one choice, it'd be like, forget all that. It's James time.
Yeah. So the right answer will be. Your favorite dream project doesn't exist yet, so it will be something that you have still to think about.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's do. I try and humour that a little bit because I don't want to be too abstract or anything. There are a few that I've got like a bucket list thing. So one was a Star Wars project. I wanted to do a Star Wars project, I've done that. I and also I'm a massive metalhead, so like I love and I when I grew up I loved Iron Maiden, love all the classic metal stuff, and I actually a few years ago I got the opportunity to work on an Iron Maiden album cover by a sideshow, and it was really successful. We really it was a good project. We did really well. The team did really well. The paints were immaculate. Ricky, who I worked with on that from Sideshow, we're both metalheads, so it was a dream project for us both, and all of the other team, the photographers, it just all came together, and so that was a real bucket list for me. And we do have an email from the band, from the representative, saying how much they love that statue. And there was another statue as well, which was done not by me, by someone else, and they love both of them. Yeah. And that, for me, that's like a real nice bonus. And that was a bucket list. So I wouldn't say I'd gone out of my way to do it if I had the time, but it was something that I got the opportunity to do, and I really, really loved it. It was really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. The other question was about. There is a very direct question. What do you wish someone had told you before you first opened ZBrush?
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow. I mean, before getting into the nightmare.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah. I think there's a weird thing with ZBrush, how you draw out your tool. Getting that idea of what a subtool is and all of that. I'd like someone to have sat down with me and explain that, because you kind of draw out the subtool, but it's still 2D, and then you have to click on edit. And then also, I'd like someone to have told me, you don't save projects, save tools. Because always work in a tool if you can. I know some people like to save all their brushes and stuff in the project, but the file size is massive. I mean, to give you guys an idea, the last core scale statue I did, I think it was something around 500 million points. And so you're looking at sort of 10 gigabyte file sizes. So the last thing you want to do is save a project file, because that saves all of your matte caps, all of your brushes, all of the settings, all in that one file, and it makes it massive. So use tools instead of projects. That would be one thing. And of course, going into it, you have no idea about the concepts of either. No one really explains that to you. So yeah, I'd like to have known that before.
Yeah. So probably you are. At this point, have you ever regret to move into digital instead to traditional sculpting?
Yeah, it's a good question.
It's the same. The traditional sculpting, digital sculpting are just tools, are just an approach. But honestly,
with that, not trying to be difficult, but they are different. They are different mediums. It's like the difference between oils and watercolor. They are different. Although again, it's difficult to find a direct comparison. But they are different. But they are just as much art as the next, in my opinion. Like we all, again, I don't know, for people who aren't familiar with ZBrush, it's easy to look at it and think, there's no skill. Like if I tell people what I do for a living, I say I'm a sculptor. But of course, when to people that aren't familiar with it, they'll think, you use a hammer. Like literally, they don't even think you use clay. They'll think, you use a hammer and chisel, because most people's knowledge of that is very limited. But yeah, there is a lot of skill involved in ZBrush. This was a real issue coming up, 10 years ago. Now we face different demons in the form of AI, which is kind of all. You can present it. I'm not going to go. I think I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole in this interview. We'll be here all day. But you can present that problem as the same problem, but further on. I don't think it is, but I think I can see people's perspective, and some of the problems that we faced in the digital sculpting when it was first coming out, some of the language being used is the same. It's really interesting to watch it. At the end of the day, digital sculpting replaced a lot of people's jobs, but also at the same time, it made the industry like 10 times bigger. It's a bigger industry than it ever used to be, or there's more stuff going on. I mean, I'd love to be proved wrong on that. So, like, and again, that's another can of worms, perhaps I need to avoid. But I think, yeah. So I don't agree that they're necessarily the same because I think you denigrate either one by comparing them. So I like to see them as individual things. I think it's been going long enough, digital sculpture, to be seen in its own right. And so that's why I wasn't trying to be combative there, but yeah, I think that's the way. Kind of after a while, after 10 years using it, and pouring my heart out into this thing, there has to be some sort of soul in it somewhere. Like it's not a completely mechanical, automatic process. Like AI really looks like. But sometimes that's difficult to kind of get across to people that don't know anything. So sometimes it's better to say I'm a sculptor and then drop it.
Yeah. I mean, and for me, it's a bit more difficult because when usually I reply, "What do you do for job?" and I reply, "Oh, I'm a painter," and I do not specific miniature painter. I just say, "Oh, I'm painting for a living." They are usually
Yeah.
thinking that I'm literally painting walls. I'm doing those kind of house work, and no, I'm not painting the
I'd
walls of
like
the
to,
houses. I mean,
I'd like to see you paint a big fresco or a wall or something. I think you do a really good job, Matteo. So don't sell yourself short.
so so at least they with me they literally watch me very weird. I mean, you are a miniature painter, so you are going to paint the medieval stuff. No, again, I'm painting very small statues, and people get a bit mad about that. I mean, I get a bit crazy. So, yeah, there is another question that is a funny one. What's your dream studio to work with, and why it is Mindwork Studio?
I see what you did there.
I don't know why this guy asked that.
You haven't. No money's exchanged hands, and look, I would say, yeah. Here's the thing, and let's go back to career-wise because I think it's relevant. I've been sculpting miniatures for a while. I think when I first met you. In fact, I first met Matteo when I was trying to get one of my bigger statues painted. No one would paint it for me.
Yeah.
It's because it was a big statue, and it's difficult to find people in Europe paint big statues. Well, it was when I looked. I think I know of more people now, but it was when I first started, it was really difficult. So I remember asking a general question on Facebook, I think, or Instagram, like, does anyone know any painters? And Matteo sort of sent me, I said, look, I'll do it for you, but it's going to cost you this much. And I looked at it and my eyes started to water. I was like, no, it's not. It is expensive, I'll say, about Matteo, which is good, don't get me wrong. Yeah, well, he left it at that because I was like, oh, I was very grateful, of course, but I realised, look, perhaps I should look at maybe painting things myself or something. But I know that I think around that time you were starting up Mindworks, I think, which was like 6-7 years ago, something like that, I think. Maybe 5 years ago, I don't know.
Yeah, it was just the beginning. I mean, it was a sort of proto Mindwork. It was something. I mean, yeah.
So and you gave me the opportunity to sculpt Last Note, and it was probably one of the best things I'd done to that date. And it was it's one thing that's really gratifying about what we do, and that is the ability to work with other artists. It's I'm very privileged to be able to work with people who have an excellent artistic eye. And it's something as you go on in your career and as you get older, you're able to pick these people out as well that have that amazing ability. Yeah, so I remember doing that sort of one sculpt for you guys, and yeah, I would say I wouldn't say it was my dream studio, but it was great fun. It was great fun, and we made something really, really cool. Yeah, I will always be thankful for it. I think it was it was a very good experience.
Yeah, that's the story by your side, but by my side was a bit different. I mean, I was trying anyway to have your scout, and at time you was something for me unreachable. I mean, I was trying to, in any way, to find a connection with you. So when you accepted to do this kind of, I mean, first exchanges of, I mean, let's start working together on something. For me, was something. Oh wow, that's one of the biggest achievement of my art director career because I'm working with James and I'm following since the beginning of my path as a painter. Here, in the meantime, I'm showing a bit of your gallery on Cara and on Instagram. And there are many. There is a job that you. I mean, this is. I think it's a personal job. The name of the work is Whispers.
Yes, yeah. I,
Can you tell us a bit more about that? Because I mean, for me, I mean, it's a dream. I could die to have the chance to paint something like that because it's something really oniric. It's something that is not linked to anything, and this is a piece of art in my opinion. It's something that
oh,
is
I appreciate it. Well, so I've been one of the things I enjoy is I like reading about the occult, and in this particular instance, I was reading a lot about witchcraft and stuff like that. I find it really, actually, I'm a massive fan of Goya. So if you know your Goya, then you'll know they did a lot of stuff on witchcraft and that kind of very dark kind of fantasy. Well, you can kind of link it into dark fantasy, really. So it kind of bleeds into my work every now and then. So yeah, I started that just before I started working at XM, and then it kind of got buried where I had lots of commercial stuff on. I was working full time, and so it kind of got buried a little bit. So I was never really happy. I'm never really happy with it, which is really funny. So it always surprises me when people like it, but because it was kind of an experimental piece, like because I wanted to be able to fit things in a circle. It's actually completely made up of circles, even down to the sickle. You know, everything has got this circular design. It's very Art Deco, and so it's kind of I wanted to kind of progress into merging an element of Art Deco into my work. I had have a lot of fun doing that. Um, so and also not sculpting the forms verbatim, so not sculpting, you know, the exact precise forms, but being able to synthesize them into different, you know, combine them and synthesize them into different forms, you
yeah.
know, that aren't traditional, that aren't, you know, what you would expect. And so yeah, it was kind of experimental like that. I don't think in my head it's not finished, which is really funny, but I had to move on because it was taking up all of my time. But yeah, there's something about me that wants to finish it. That want, you know. So yeah, it's funny like that. I've also not been a fan of making beautiful faces. Not even for women. You know, like I like to experiment with ugly faces. With, you know, like I like to surprise a little bit perhaps, or, you know, don't try and force myself, because I find if I try and make things too beautiful, then it forces you down a very narrow path very quickly, creatively. So yeah, I find that's again can be a double-edged sword a little bit, because you know it can make or break a statue, a sculpt. But I think in this instance, I was kind of happy with it. You know, like uh, yeah. So I'm glad you pointed that one out. It's a fun thing. I forget about them. I make these things and then I just move on. So it's interesting sort of go back in my head about it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, is one of your favorite artwork ever, and
Yeah,
I mean, this is something again. You didn't work on the on an artwork of someone else. You created by yourself. You create the shapes. You create the storytelling, and I think that is very readable. I mean, you someone that maybe it's following you. It's your fan can read the shapes, the way you are sculpting, and something that is related to your inner soul. And to that, there is just a comment in the chat. That's quite right. I mean, it's always weird when you put your art into the world and then people like the things you don't like. It's
That's
very common. That is very, very common.
and that's why it's important to put it out there, even if you don't like it. You kind of have to make yourself put it out there because people will see value in it. There's nothing wrong. By the way, there's nothing wrong with not liking your work. Most of us don't like our work to a degree. I think as part of it, we need that because it makes us want to, to push ourselves to achieve more. I think that's most of the successful artists I know have that component.
Yeah.
Like we at the end of the day, we're never going to be happy with our work. I've said this in the past to people, but art is not like a plateau where you learn loads of stuff and then you get to a point and then you're like, I've done it, I've won, this is level 100. I've achieved everything. It's not going to happen or it shouldn't happen. You're always going to be moving up step at that. Sometimes you fall down one and you have to get back up. And it's it's part of your life as an artist.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm glad people see value in it. It's fantastic, really. That's all. That to me, more than earning money or anything else. If someone sees value in something I've done, that's a blessing. It really is.
Yeah, yeah, totally agree. I seems to me that you are a huge fan of World War One.
I wouldn't say a fan.
I mean, a fan of aesthetic, not a fan of the topic, of course. I mean, you are a huge fan of the aesthetic and the uniforms and I mean all those kind of equipment. It's something that you constantly repeat. Do you have any kind of historical passion, hobby, or
Yes.
enactment, or something like that, or is just
Yeah, I think I think actually, if I wasn't doing this, I'd be doing something history related because I'm fascinated by history. And in some instances, I've got like a crazy eidetic memory when it comes to like history and not with dates specifically, but with the stories around. And I think for me, the reason I kind of go back to it is because there's a very rich tapestry of stories around those periods. Well, not just that, but a very visual vocabulary that revolves around those periods. It's like that period of time was a very, cataclysmic almost. And it's so the memories and the stories are very deep, and you can kind of tap into those. So I feel some sort of artistic synergy going on there when I do stuff. It's been a while actually. I've been doing a few bits and bobs behind the scenes, but I haven't shared anything for a while about it. But
yeah,
yeah, it's something that I feel. Yeah, there's a bit of soul in there. There's a bit of some, not just sort of surface, but there's a soulful element to explore there, if that makes sense.
yeah,
That's why I revisit, not just World War One, but a lot of wars for some reason. There's all not just the sort of the classic action stuff or whatever. There's also very sad stories, but like the full spectrum, really. And yeah, I'm really interested. I go to a lot of museums and stuff like that in my spare time. So yeah, well specifically planes. I love planes. In fact, if I started to learn how to fly when I was 17, but kind of gave it up. But I've always, as a kid, I was always able to identify, planes through their silhouettes and stuff like that. So yeah, massive fan of that.
yeah, 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 yeah. Understandable, and yeah, I mean, for me, it's the same. Another question is a good one because I'm very curious about your routine because I have a very non-routine routine. I mean, every day in my life is completely different by the others. And when you are on a live project, what does your average working day look like? So, I mean, do you have a kind of routine that help you to be on track of the project, or you sculpt only when you're
Yeah,
inspired?
Yeah, it's a good question. Everyone's going to be different with this as well because everyone's got a different home life, a different things going on. I think the focus really is to deliver at least 5 hours of sculpting a day. Sometimes it's going to be less than that. Sometimes it'll be more. Um, Try not to be too prescriptive about it. So some other things are going on in the house, and then that'll take me away from it. Or I'll spend 2 hours looking at images, like or researching or looking at what I've done because it doesn't look right, or so trying to get into specifics here because I know that's what people are interested in. Like I don't spend all day sculpting. It's just not. Well, maybe it's because I'm not good enough, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's not an automatic process for me. There's a lot of thought and a lot of back and forth. And also, if you're working on a big project, then you've got to talk to people. You know, if you've got several jobs, I mean, I'm not no longer full time, so I'm going to have several things from several different people going on. So you'll have to learn how to juggle those. Some depending on the project, you might have to give one day to Matteo, one day to Sideshow, like you have to work it out and kind of be an adult about it. But it's nothing too prescriptive from mine. But just really like a little bit of work in the morning, a break, main body of work in the afternoon, and that might take me way up into dinner, like into the evening, or I could finish sort of at 5, and then finish for the day, play some games, do something else, take my mind off it,
Okay,
do some drawing,
this is
you know.
the normal routine. I mean, it's also the common routine of the normal people. But are you more a nocturnal animal and you will prefer working during the night, or it's fine working during the day? Because for a lot of time I was preferring working during the night.
I think it's a common thing, isn't it? Like I really do my best stuff at really late at night, but I also know that I won't sleep and I'll wake up early. So I think I'm sounding really old now, but like yeah, I think I've tried to kind of rein. I still go to bed about 1 o'clock, but that's because I'm like for some reason my brain is just trained to do that. But as I've got an older, I've tried to kind of rein that back and have regular hours. I think that mostly that it's just healthier, Matteo, isn't it? I think really,
Oh, yeah, yeah,
um,
of course, it's completely unadopted, but I was literally doing the same. I mean, I was not taking care of that, and okay, I know that is wrong, but I will paint all day, all night long, and I will
yeah,
ruin completely my day, right?
exactly. Yeah, it can be really difficult, and we've got our health to think about on all of that sort of stuff as well. So you have to try and get some sort of semblance of routine going, which is kind of boring, but
Yeah, that's the reason why I don't think to be able to just paint miniature, and I have to do a lot of things. I mean, I have to constantly change my jobs during the week. I will never be able to just paint miniature. I have to one day doing art direction, one day doing very boring stuff about the company. And, I mean, all those tasks, all those challenges are literally pushing me to do more, to not get annoyed. I did only for 2 years full-time painter, and for me it was not possible. I mean, only one task for the entire week. No,
yeah,
I have to distract constantly from from my
yes.
first task. There is a guy asking if you have any plans to launch tutorial or mentoring in the future. Nope.
No,
No
I
teaching
think
by James. You will never learn.
there might be the odd thing here and there. I'm actually talking to someone at the moment, so watch this space. But in terms of like a big sprawling thing where like I take on people, mentorships. No, I might do like a couple of days somewhere. Maybe organising that. I'd like to do it with you guys. I'd like to do it for the miniature industry. I know that there's some potential, places I can do it over in the UK. I know I'm definitely going to be doing stuff with you, Matteo. We'll be talking about that. Like in that way, see, here's the thing. I'm sad about it because I'd like to meet. This is the best thing. Like the worst thing about our job is that we're in our little hobbit holes, all making art, and like we don't get out enough, and that's been a problem I've been really struggling with over the last 3 years, and I know a lot of artists have, especially post-COVID, where our routines were just thrown in midair and right, like it scrambled about. So part of me wants to do it, wants to meet more people, but I just don't have the time. And for me, I could not deliver a product to someone that was subpar. If I'm going to be mentoring you, I want to be devoting my full time to you, and I'm not able to deliver something like that at the moment. So
Yeah. I guess the policy is easier to take me off.
yes, what have you been doing?
I mean, it's the last time we are talking, so in very few minutes the squad will get into the house. So I think that is quite late, and I don't want steal too much time from you.
No, it's fine. No, we
Yeah,
can go for another hour. It's whether people want to listen or not. But I've got
probably
another hour.
people wants for sure. There are also
Yeah.
placing more questions. There is a question about when you started your career. What artist inspired much more?
Oh, that's a good. I think. Yeah, it's going to be surprising because a lot of people would expect a 3D artist, but I wasn't looking at 3D artists. In fact, I wasn't really looking at contemporary artists. So I would say two artists really I still love to this day, J.W. Waterhouse and J.C. Leyendecker.
Why?
And there's loads of others.
Oh yeah, 'cause-
But,
okay,
but
okay.
those two,
I mean, you just mentioned true gods of the art, so I mean,
exactly. And actually, I was extremely lucky to be able to see most of J.W. Waterhouse's work in person. I think it was about 5 years ago when they were all together in London at the Royal Academy. So I was able to go and see that, and I don't think that will ever happen in my lifetime again. So, and I was a fan before, but I think when I went to see that and saw that stuff in person, I'll give you an example of why I like Waterhouse. Can't remember the painting's name. I'm terrible with names, but there's one painting where it's like the figure. It's like a female figure, very Frazetta-esque, actually. I would say. I should say Frazetta was Waterhouse-esque, but because it was way before. But this big figure, and this painting's about the size from the floor to the ceiling. It's massive. And there's like a woman sort of like standing like that, and then she's got like a belt with a big metal buckle, big ornate metal buckle, and the light is catching the top of the buckle, and it's like almost photographic when you look. It's like very painterly, but still that lovely impressionistic style that Waterhouse had or was able to develop. But when you look up close, it's he's just gone with a big brush splat. And there's just a big white brush mark where that highlight is, and it's absolutely. I could stand and look at that up close. It's a really weird thing to fixate on, but like there's something about it that's so magical. That one, but not just the technique, but the brass balls to just do it and leave it. Because most of us wouldn't be able to leave it. We'd have to fiddle with it. We'd have to fix it. But he just was like whack and then walked, and he just walked off. And it's just that mindset is absolutely amazing to me. It's a beautiful mindset to have for art. So yeah.
Yeah. And for that reason, I would love to ask you something a bit more related to the job we did together on Mindwork, because we worked on several artists. We worked on Odds by Gabriele Dell'Otto. We work on Frank Frazetta, who sculpted a couple of figures, the Nuts, Good Lord, and Hewin. We work on several figures of Braun, and which of those about those, if you're thinking about all the figures that we sculpted for us, which one is not your favorite, but is the one that you remember better the process, the journey? I mean, literally having fun or maybe having pain, trying to get out from the artwork.
Um, yeah, this is a good question, and I want to think about it because yeah, they were all. I'm all well. Firstly, I'm very proud of all of those. The work we put in, and not just at my end, but at your end, to make those into miniatures people want to paint. It's an achievement. So I just want to say that first. Um, well, I would say Oz. It has to be Oz. We really both really liked that working on that, didn't we? And it was a magical thing to do for Gabriella, you know, like to bring his painting to life. Uh, I would say I really, really enjoyed that. But not only that, there was a massive challenge to bring that into a 3D space because actually, forgive me, Gabriella, but the painting is very flawed, and that's why it's so good. You know, at the end of the day, a lot of these paintings have a minute flaws to them, to the forms or whatever, and that's what makes them actually appealing. But it's problematic when you come to translate those, because I want to be able to translate those, and I want people to look at that and think Gabriella's sculpted that. I don't want really to think that I sculpted it. There's a part of me that wants, you know, like it's a representation of his work at the end of the day. So in that way, I really enjoyed that piece. But the other one I really liked was Night Bells. I really, really liked that one. It was kind of a deep cut for us now, but looking back, the Brom Night Bells that we did, which is the guy on the rooftop. And again, that was difficult to cut. Again, it was a problematic piece because there's no way you could technically stand on a steeple like that. You'd fall and impale yourself like instantly, you know. So you kind of, but as a sculptor, I have to kind of make it work, but not only that, make it believable. So you're kind of actually trying to make the impossible believable in a way, and also so it doesn't fall over on itself. You know, there's all these little things you have to do. That for me, again, that was a milestone for me. I think I really enjoyed rendering that. The render came out really well. Yeah, it was a good. That one was a good piece. So two really, Oz and Night Bells.
Yeah, yeah. Odds is it probably is the same for me. It's the project we did together. I remember better, also because it was very challenging. I mean, probably it was the less smooth project we did together. Is the one that get more review, get more trouble, you get more issues also about the production because it was very difficult to having all those figures interacting all together. We should think. I remember we were thinking about we have to sprint it, we have to cast the figure has to stand alone. Challenging project are probably one of the.
Well, it's a good thing to talk about as well because at the end of the day, I'm only one component of the process, and the reality is we all need to work. You know, there's several other components that all need to work in unison and almost harmonize really together to get a good product to work. So I think that's where, like Oz, it's funny because the most difficult projects and the ones with the most problems or that are problematic for me are always normally the best ones because we overcome things and we're able to talk about them. And I know getting a lion that's 2D to work anatomically but not look too realistic, still look like a comic book character.
Yeah,
almost impossible. It was really difficult getting the expression, getting the, you know, because it can work in 2D, but then you've got to think about what's happening on the other side. His legs too big. You know, if I was to make this work on the other side, his body's going to be out of proportion. So can we get away with that? Eowyn on the Nazgul Scott was the same. Because Frazetta had a very specific way of, working on his women. And they are slightly. There's some weird proportions going on. There's some big hips. There's you have to make that work in 3D. And it can be sometimes it requires a bit of back and forth. And so you're not just being the big artist and working on it on your own. You have to go to other people, get their feedback, and be able to take that feedback on the chin because sometimes it will be what you don't want to hear. and be able to act on it. Um, Unfortunately, I hate to break it to people, but the more successful you get and the higher up in the chain you go, the more you're going to get that. Like it's not making big statues is not a smooth process
Yeah.
at all. There's lots of back and forth. If you're working for a licensor like Disney or Warner Brothers, you may have made something really good that you've really had to struggle back and forth internally with the team, and then it goes to Disney or it goes to Warner Brothers, and they look at it and think, no, that's not going to work, and then you have to go back and redo it, and your ego has to be able to take
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. I mean, I think that these are very common process for all the artisans.
Yeah,
I mean, aside to all the technical, for I think that most of people are thinking too much about technical stuff, and
mm,
sometimes there are more things related to being able to understand how the whole process is going to work together. Review, back and forth, the expectation of the customer, your expectation that usually doesn't come up very easily because you are thinking and you are literally creating your work. And I
mm,
mean, usually I work before in my brain, my mind, and then I start to work, and then I just realize and I face the reality that what I was thinking about is not what I'm doing. So it's a whole very difficult process of back and forth. Especially if you're
yeah,
working for a big industry, you are not the only one. Also, if you are the sculptor, you are not a god. I mean, you are just a part of the process. Where of course you
yeah.
can put your effort, you can put your signature, you can put your style, but you have so many people around your process that you have to literally satisfy all the requests.
Well, let's touch on something we were discussing previously, and that is the amount of trust. So let's talk about Sideshow. So Sideshow, I don't know specifically the cost of the statue process. So this is not. I'm just going to talk off the top of my head, but I would say it's in the like you're looking at a lot of money, like a lot of money on one thing, and they are trusting you to make this one thing, and whether it's successful or fails revolves around you. Okay, there's other members of the team, and there's other component. That means there's other components that can fail as well. But the reality is, you are an important component of that process. And so, this is the reason why you can't go out straight out of art school and get a Sideshow statue straight away. I mean, like, look, I'd love people to be able to do that. That's fantastic. And if you do that, well done. But the reality is that you need to be a safe pair of hands. You need to be able to show. You need to have worked commercially before. You need to, even for you, I know you're working at small scales, and so the money's scaled down, but it's still a significant investment for you to make a product, and you need to be able to get a return on that investment. Sometimes you'll do everything right, and it still won't make any money. So, at the end of the day, it's a very tough thing to do. And so, I just thought I'd mention that because it's something that a lot of people starting out don't really think about.
Yeah.
If you're making a Batman, for example, like imagine how big that franchise is. It's massive. I mean, even it's small relative to the film and games industries. What you're doing is relatively small money-wise, but comparatively to the miniatures and statues in general, it's probably up there. It's probably the most money people spend.
Yeah.
So to get an official Batman statue, it's just really, especially for Sideshow, the competition is wild. But not only that, but they've got to be able to think, yeah, you need to give that to James. James is going to deliver, and there's so many steps you need to do before that's going to happen. Some of them are personal, some of them are kind of artistic. So yeah, I feel like that's not talked about enough. Because at the end of the day, we're working for businesses. It is a business. There's a business enterprise going on. So you kind of have to be able to fit in the team and understand that as well.
But it's also the only way. I mean, of course, we will love to be totally unrelated to the business and being able to just make art will be a dream. Will be a
I would love to do my own
will
stuff.
be the nirvana, of course.
It's nothing, that would be awesome. Sorry, mate.
No, no, probably. I mean, if you win the lottery, let me know, Mika. I mean, that's the only way I think we can do that.
So move to Pescara, that's it. I feel like I need to live by the sea as well in Italy. That'd be lovely. So,
Yeah, just sculpting for yourself, no business, no customer, no client. You don't have to sell anything, no social media, just you and the artistic journey. Of course, that will be
yeah,
a very probably will be the best. But again, being an artist, it's really related to the business because it's not easy to sell. The competition is very high, and especially on that, I want to open a different topic with you because you sculpted for the miniature industries, you sculpted for the big statue industry. I know you worked also on entertainment because you worked for Love That Robot episodes and also something else.
yes,
Do you want to tell us a bit more about that, about your journey in
yeah,
the big mother industry, I mean the entertainment, because I think that statue and miniature are just a very little niche of a bigger
yeah.
ocean.
Uh, Actually, that's a good subject because they are. That may no doubt about it. I mean, I would say miniatures are niche within niche. Like it's just it's comparatively a tiny industry compared to the visual effects industries. And I would say that I'm not don't want to denigrate anyone that works in the miniature industry. There's some big talent out there, but the reality is, there's even more talent out in those industries. The money's massive as well, but also the pressure is. And here's the reality. I'm afraid it takes a certain type of person, in my experience, to make it work. Like because those industries will chew you up and spit you out if you let them. And I've seen it happen to many, many people. So you kind of, so many young artists I see go into, especially games, and now probably even visual effects, and they with they want to work on their favorite characters. I've been there, and there's nothing more exciting. But then you end up in a foreign city in substandard accommodation. All of the basics aren't looked after because you're not focused on that you wanted to work on this. And so it's a difficult industry. Those industries are difficult. And the reason I'm saying this is when I first started out, I was a bit older. I looked at those industries as like, they're not for me. Like they are going to use and abuse me and drop me first thing. And I don't want that. I've come too far to let that happen. So I'm going to focus on this. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, I'll go back to graphic design or whatever. And so I did like stuff like, like I said, the collectibles. I did some sort of very commercial work. And then when I started to get slightly higher profile stuff, slightly more official stuff, I just got contacted to, I went out to LA a little bit and back, and then I met some people as well. And, I got some offers to do conceptual work. One of those was with Axis, who at the time, they're not around anymore, bless them, but this amazing company based in Glasgow. And I was working for a girl named Amy up there. They were lovely people. I really enjoyed working with Amy, and we worked on 2 episodes of Love, Death, Robots together. And it was fantastic. And it was a one-off. Look, at the end of the day, if that sort of work comes to me, great. If it doesn't, it's not a big deal because my focus is on this stuff. One thing I would say is it's really tough. The deadlines are tough. You've got to, and the team works even more. Like you have to work with a bigger team, and you have to be able to iterate through things very, very quickly. So I couldn't do it all the time. It's not for me. But it was fun. I dip into it every now and then if I got the opportunity. The money was normally good, and the people were good with Axis. So do you know what? My first experience of that, I actually worked on Fast and Furious for DreamWorks because they were developing a cartoon based on Fast and Furious. So they really liked the style that I was doing. They wanted to develop the TV show on these lines. I mean, we're talking 6 years ago or whatever now, 7 years ago. I really had fun with that, but it was never used. It was never, they never took it any further, and they ended up going with this very cookie cutter look, and which was kind of disappointing but understandable because it was more bankable.
Yeah.
But that's the other thing you need to realize about that. You can do so much work within that industry is not shown. So you might do your best work, but no, you'll never get to show it. And it's the same with the games industry as well. You know, I know loads of people that do their best work for sort of the big companies, and then they never get to share, or they're part of a massive team, so they're one component, and not many people get a whole character to themselves.
Yeah.
Or, you know, so if you're looking for a pure aggrandizement, you know, oh, I've done this one character, well, the reality is most of the time that's touched by 30 people or whatever down the pipeline. So it's even worse than big statues here, where you've got 10 people, 20 people working on a big statue. Within games and visual effects, you've got maybe 100. I'm not that knowledgeable about it, but I'm assuming it's around that, probably more. So it's in that way, there's similarities, but when it gets to a point, it diverges. It's a completely different discipline. So that's also worth touching on.
Yeah.
Because our focus within the miniature, or let's focus on miniatures, is to deliver composition. And this is where a lot of people lose sight behind the technical stuff. What we do for painters is we deliver a composition for them to paint on. And that is the most important thing. That when you're doing something for visual effects or games, you're delivering an asset that's then worked on further. And that's where the two diverge. Don't get me wrong, there's artistry in both, but the two become very different at that when they diverge like that. There's more technical stuff with that side, with the visual effects stuff as well.
So sometimes, that's also my opinion, you are just a little part of a whole process, and you are devoured by the process itself. You are part of this kind of huge team, and you don't have any space to express yourself. So do you think that it's requiring more talent to work in the statue or miniature industry compared to the visual effects?
Yeah, it's more. Sorry, can you say that again? Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was thinking, do you think that you need more talent to work into the statue or miniature industry compared to the VFX industry?
Oh, it's a good question.
You need to be more able to express alone, because if you are part of a team, you can lack in something, and anyway you can work and you can deliver a very good result because you are part of a team. It's like a football team. If you are standalone, if you are just one guy working on the complete asset, you'll be able to take care of the whole project. It's like you are part of a team, of a basketball or football, something. A team sport. And the other hand, you have those kind of single sport when you are alone, you with yourself.
Yeah, and I think this is I think the danger with what we're talking about is you kind of fall into that trap of feeling, like rock star sculptor sort of stuff, where which I don't necessarily agree with, because it's like you're still, even what we do, there's so much stuff that goes on behind the scenes with other people. I just it doesn't feel right to me. But I know what you're saying. I think, and it's kind of true, because the reality is you've got to fit into a larger, there's something much bigger than you going on in those sort of industries. So you've got to be able to fit. And I know of instances in those industries where the ego has been too big to fit within the smaller slot that the team, that's the reality. I'm not saying that person's wrong, but or right or whatever. We all have different, we all work in different ways. We all understand the world in different ways. So, you have to have a certain sort of ego, a certain sort of way of dealing with the project that will work better with those industries, and it will. Now, if you go into miniatures or even the big statues, and expect to be able to transition straight to visual effects with those skills. Only a few of those will translate. And then you'll have to learn even more, and vice versa as well. There's so like I say, what we do is compositional, even more so than the big statues, because the big statues you can get away with bring things up with detail a little bit more. There's more stuff going on. What we do, we have to distill an idea into a much smaller format. So, and that takes a certain skill set that is not quite the same as the other stuff. So
we have also a question from the chat. Would you recommend to improve posture in poses? It's the same. I mean, it's very similar to improve the posture in poses.
But the pose, the composition and the pose, how to improve that within what we're doing? Is that right?
Yeah.
Just practice. There's all sorts of weird blackmail photos of me on my computer. I hope no one ever finds them, because they're me all posing in different, with clothes on, by the way. That sounds so wrong. But because I act out what we're doing, and I get someone to take a photo of me, I still have that very illustrative mindset. And I feel like if you're in that pose, there's something weird that happens. It's not just the photo you take the user's reference. You understand how the body works, what the body's doing by mimicking that pose. And then you're able to somehow understand it better on the screen. And so, and then understanding how that then translates to composition, distilling things, seeing shapes in forms, bigger shapes.
Yeah.
And I think with more so with 3D than 2D, shapes are exploitative. And what I mean by that is I don't not often anyway, set out with a load of shapes and I make things fit around them. I start off with an idea, start composing, and then I start seeing shapes, and then I force the statue into those shapes a little bit. Just try and of course when the trap with what we do is that we don't see it from one angle, and of course we're sculpting on a flat surface as well. So the trap you fall in is we get very flat sculptures. It's quite common for students to do very flat looking sculptures because they're not turning the sculpt enough. They're not seeing, even professionals do this sometimes. So you have to turn it, and that's where it can be really tricky. So getting it to work from all angles. You know what? I don't think I've ever done a statue yet where I've got it to work from all angles. But if you can get it to work on most of them, then that's great.
Yeah. It's for you common drawing while you are sculpting. I have my best friend is a digital sculptor, and all day long while he's sculpting, he's usually drawing all the time.
Yeah.
If he's going to sculpt a shoulder, he's there drawing down shapes, general shapes, composition. Is away.
That's better.
Yeah.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm sitting here in the dark. Sorry, Matteo. I don't draw as much. I do draw more now. I draw more than I used to. I went through a period of hating my drawing. So when I started ZBrush, I didn't really feel the need, and then I've gone back in time to do that, to draw more, to compose more. So the more recent personal statues, I just did a statue for mum and dad because it was their 50th wedding anniversary, and I drew all of that statue out before I sculpted it. So I composed it first in my sketchbook, and then I sculpted it. And I started to do that more with my personal work, and a little bit of my commercial work. It's not necessarily needed with what I do, mostly because a 2D artist has already done that. So I don't really want to go back over old ground, and do that. But for me, coming up with my own ideas is important in my sketchbook first. So I've got, as we were saying before, I've got a load of ideas in my sketchbook now. I think that. So I think as time goes on and AI takes over or whatever, that is even more important to keep a sketchbook,
Yeah.
because it's what those, like it because it's the quickest way from brain idea to paper. It's still, for me, it's quicker than I would hit it against AI any time in terms of its artistic value.
Yeah.
Um, brain to paper.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
still, it will always be valuable to the right people in the process. So
Yeah.
yeah, I do. I did a degree in illustration, so I was drawing all the time. So it was nice. It's nice to kind of get back to that.
Yeah, I think that is it's an holistic process, so you are going to involve everything inside. So we
Yes.
are at the end of our interview. We still have many questions, especially technical ones, and if
Yeah.
we have to answer them all, we will spend another hour. So probably I will ask you to maybe to release together a digital written interview about
Yes.
some specifics, so we can write down an article about all of them. I can gather them all and we can create a little digital written interview. I
Yeah.
want just maybe, I don't know if we can announce that, but probably yes, why not? That we are starting now to work again together. So I'm
Yes.
very happy to announce that James will, in a couple of months, something like that, will join us as an art director and sculptor in Mindwork Games for a part time. So you will see a lot, I hope.
Yes. Well, I'll also be. I'd like to learn Italian and see. I haven't been to Florence yet, so these are all things we need to do. Matteo, yeah, I'm looking forward to it immensely, Matteo, because I think we can do some really fun things together. But not only that, I feel like I can help the other artists within Mindworks to achieve what they want to achieve as well, and in turn give you what you want and give your fans, what they want. Good statues to paint and display.
Yeah, I have
I
10,
think.
I have 10 Batman for you.
Yeah.
James is literally cutting down the connection now and we will never talk again.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It was a slip up, but that's fine.
Exactly. Okay, sorry, I was jogging. 12 Batman
No,
for
no,
you.
no, it's fine. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it immensely. I think we worked well together, and firstly, I love the community that you guys are trying to create that buzz around miniatures. It's fantastic seeing the miniature community that I was involved in. Like when I first started my career, and it just seems to have gotten bigger. A lot of people disagree with that, but I think creatively it has gotten bigger.
Yeah.
And it's great to see new faces, new people doing new things, and it's fantastic to be part of that. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it immensely.
Thank you, mate. Thank you. And yeah, I'm looking forward to start again working together on so many projects, and I really hope to do very cool stuff. And again, thank you for your time. It's been a huge pleasure having you here. Maybe we will repeat again experience in the next months, talking
Yeah.
about all the Batman we are sculpting together. So.
Oh, don't even go there. Oh, yeah, okay. If you want me to.
So thank you a lot. I don't know if you want to leave a last message to the public, otherwise we can shut down.
Well, firstly, thank you if you have got this far, but listening to us going on for what's it been, an hour and a half or whatever. But yeah, I really appreciate it, and I'm really hoping that Matteo and I can deliver some really cool stuff for you guys in the future. So watch this space.
No, thank you, James, and thank you, guys. I just want to repeat again that you are invited every Tuesday and every Thursday for a double weekly stream on paintings, interviews, and much more we are cooking for you. So thank you, guys, and see you next time. Thank you, James. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Okay, no, it's not shutting down. Today is the day of the technical issues that is not going down. Okay, perfect. We are stuck here forever, James. Sorry, we cannot we cannot escape from the